Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Respected students, dear viewers, and my dear colleagues, hope you are all well. So today I welcome you once again within this online lecture series. It's Friday today, so as per routine, I am here available to you people, for you people to deliver something regarding your political science. So dear students, let me recapitulate. We are discussing about here the gender, religion, and the caste. It's our chapter number 4 from the component political science. In my last previous talk, I gave a brief introduction regarding the same concept: what is gender, what's religion, and what's caste, and why these three themes has been chosen by these political scientists to within their syllabus to discuss something regarding the gender, religion, and then ultimately to the caste. I was talking to you people that what is gender really actually. Gender is not something that's biological construction what actually sex was. Actually, it's the social construction, it's the social and the cultural engineering process that takes place within the society and that determines the nature and the fate destiny of a particular candidate, particularly when you talk about the female. And same is the case of religion. When religion becomes the problem, when religion becomes a prejudice, when religion becomes a source of discrimination, when communal harmony is on the threshold, when from every angle we witness the communal clashes. So there is only one way to address those problems, that's the democratic means, where every minority section will be represented and they are given the absolute representation there. And last, it was a caste politics. That is caste. That's one of the most deep-rooted problem within the society, where still the people believe that the caste-oriented system needs to be prevalent, and caste-needed system needs to be given this encouragement that the people should cast their votes for the sake of the particular caste. That's absolutely a damn faulty trend. So, dear students, these three terms, gender, religion, and the caste, these three concepts actually. We are going to describe and discuss these three concepts separately today within this political science corner, within this short talk. So gender and this religion and the politics, these are the three separate segments of the story. How these social divisions are created on the basis of this, on the name of this, these three problems which are social in nature, which are not biological or which are not natural in process, where everywhere you will witness that these are some process that's going on and that tries to stigmatize the someone who is become the victim of this victimhood. So dear students, when we talk about this gender, today the first topic which I am going to discuss to touch here about that's gender. Let's begin with this gender division. First of all, what it is, it's a form of a hierarchical social division seen on everywhere, but is rarely recognized in the study of the politics. The gender divisions tends to be understood as natural and unchangeable. However, it's not based on the biology, but on the social expectations and the stereotypes. Well, I said to you that it's not something that's based on the biological in nature, it's something that's cultural, that's social in nature, and these social processes give birth to different stereotypes and stereotype mentality, where the people become the victim of the same problem. Okay, dear students, let me here have a brief look towards our societies which are completely patriarchal in nature, means that's male dominated societies. When we talk about the upbringing of our kids, the boys and girls, they are brought up to believe that the main responsibility of a woman is housework and the bringing of the children. When this such sort of narrative is developed in the particular society, that only the females, only the women is the trustee of the housework and they are responsible for bringing up the children, this is reflected in a sort of sexual division of the labor. Exactly, students, what we simply call it's a sexual division of labor, where the work is divided on the basis of this sex. It's a sexual division of the labor, and in most families, women do all the work inside the home, such as cooking, cleaning, washing clothes, or tailoring, looking after the children, etc., and men do all the work outside the home. So when we say that women they are preferred to, among the four walls. They do certain domestic works. They do tailoring. They clean the house. They do wash the clothes. They do tailoring. They do cooking. So it indicates that, and persistently the male, they do the jobs outside the house. It indicates one thing, that the woman is cocooned. It's preferred to sit among the four walls only. She is not allowed. She's not permitted that she cannot go outside the four walls and she can prove their mettle there. It indicates only one thing, that females, they are prone, they are vulnerable to weakness, they are vulnerable to the dangers, that there can be danger, there are certain apprehensions. The moment we say that they can go outside, there are certain risk factors. We can't take such decisions that they will be allowed to go outside. So they simply think that it's for the women to attend these things. When these jobs are paid for men, and when these jobs are paid for the men and are ready to take up these works, most tailors or cooks in hotels are men. Similarly, it's not the women do not work outside their homes. In villages, women fetch water, they collect fuel and work in the fields. But in the urban areas, poor women work as a domestic helper in the middle class homes, while the middle class women work among the offices. And in fact, the majority of the women do some sort of the paid works in addition to the domestic labors. So why they are doing such sort of additional works? Because to support their families. When you talk about the middle class families, the women initially they do the works which are lying within the four walls, and later on they do such sort of work by which they can assist, they can provide some sort of monetary help to their fiancé, to their husbands. The result of this division of the labor is that although women constitute half of the humanity, their role in the public life, especially politics, is minimal in the most societies. The students, when you talk about the work of the women, they do the 50-70% of the work, and what they are getting out of it, what sort of weights they are getting in return of it, that's very minimal. That's very least. So this sort of paradox, this sort of gap that has been created, that's why this gender politics came into existence. That let's try to find out the lacunas, let's try to find out the weaknesses, where the weaknesses lies, and we need to address those areas why the women are cocooned, why they are fixed, the job is fixed among the four walls, and somehow in the middle class female households they work for the monetary help for their husbands. But still a lot needs to be done, a lot of narratives needs to be reconstructed, and certain things needs to be changed. Dear students, if we talk about the participation of the women, participation of the female folk among the different affairs of the life, that's very much minimal. What I said to you earlier in my previous clip, that the role is very minimal. Also, only the men were allowed to participate in the public affairs, casting votes, contesting the elections, contesting for the public offices. But gradually, what happened? The gender issue was raised among the politics. Women in the different parts of the world organized and agitated for their equal rights. Their agitations were held among the different countries of the world for extension of the voting rights of the women. These agitations demanded the enhancing the political and legal status of women, and it was improving their educational and the career opportunities. So, dear students, when we talk about the emancipation, when we talk about the emancipation of the women, when we talk about the participation of the women among the different public affairs, among the different public offices, this didn't happen within a jiffy of the moments. It took a long walk to success. It took a long walk to win this goal. When the people came from the different corners, they tried to raise the issues of the females, that females should be given the priority and they should be given a chance to take part among the elections. They should be given the equal weights, they should be given the equal priorities, they should enjoy the equal opportunities, and all these fields demands the participation of the female, which is the more than half of chunk of the population, more than a half of ratio of the population. That was every time, what I can say, subdued. That was every time overruled, and they were subdued. They were depressed. They were suppressed by the oppression of female. That this patriarchal nature of the society every time try to dominate this section of the society. What the people believe that, let me quote here the the philosopher, namely Plato, what he says, that God cannot do certain things that's illogical. Those things which are illogical, irrational, means creating females, God cannot do irrational act. It indicates one thing, that male and female they does not have any sort of bar, they don't have any sort of gap in between. We should not doubt on the rationality or their capacity. Yeah, that's absolutely factual, that we should provide them absolute grounds, we should provide them the absolute opportunities, we should provide them the actual field that they too can come forward, and they will try to prove their worth and capacity. Dear students, that's why this gender politics became the theme of your political science, that how the politics is played at the cost of the gender. And for this, to win this goal, to win this moment, to win this feat, to defeat this defeat, to give them the chance to play part in the politics, what happened, that a new section of the society, new political thinkers, new think tanks, new political pundits and political philosophers, columnists, they came into existence, they came into the prominence, they showed their worth by their pen, and by the moment they raised their voices, and new thought was emerged, what we simply call the feminism. Dear students, what we simply call the feminism. So, the most radical women's movements aimed at equality in the personal and family life as well. These movements are called feminist movements. So these movements are called feminist movements, and the ideology that talks about this, that's called feminism. Dear students, now the new wave of the politics emerged, what we simply call the feminists, that talked about this improvement, emancipation, upliftment of this women folk. The wave is called the feminism. The first wave of feminism started in 1968. Dear students, it was in 1968 when the French writer, namely the Simon de Beauvoir here, the wave on the screen, Simon de Beauvoir, he wrote his book, The Best Treatise, what I simply call the magnum opus, the best contribution to the literature. Simon de Beauvoir here, he talks about the second sex, the book entitled as The Second Sex. He talks about the moment he introspected the different narratives of the society regarding this political campaigning, domestic violence, sexual harassment, social harassments, the gender bias regarding the females. So he was forced to pen down a very best treatise, what we simply call the Second Sex. The Second Sex, published in 1968. So this was our first wave of this feminism, dear students. The first wave of feminism that started by radical movements by the feminist writers, where they tried to address the different issues, different narratives of the societies provided by the feminist writers. The political expression of the gender and the political mobilization on the question helped to improve the women's role in the public life. Both the first wave, second wave, or the third wave of the feminists, they directly or indirectly believe in the one thing, that only the status, the profile of the female can be enhanced, uplifted only the moment we can raise their political standard. We can give them the right that's their fundamental in nature, what we simply call the political right. This political expression of the gender division and the political mass mobilization on the question will help them to improve their role among the public life. Without giving them the political recognition, without considering them the political entity, without thinking that the value of one vote of a male is equal to the value of one vote casted by a female. So till the moments we can't do this thing, we can't hold this idea that we can't, thus we cannot achieve the target. But with the passage of time, we have witnessed a tremendous shift within this long saga of success. We now find the women working as scientists, they work as doctors, engineers, lawyers, managers, among the colleges, among the universities, as teachers, as professors, which were earlier not considered suitable jobs for the women. So dear students, these were different jobs, different cadres, different profiles, where the females are taking participation among the nowadays. But once upon a time, it was considering that it's a myth, they can't do this thing. They're not meant for it. It's only meant for the males. A male can dominate things. They can dictate things. Female cannot. It's weak sex. It's fragile voice. It's vulnerable soul. And it's prone to attack. It's prone to threat. So we are not going to take this risk. Dear students, if you talk about in the most parts of the countries, particularly when you talk about the Scandinavian nations, Scandinavian countries, such as when you talk about the Norway, Sweden, or Finland, the participation of the women in public life is absolutely high. Among these countries, when you talk about the Finland, when you talk about the Norway, Sweden, we will witness that the participation of the public of the women, I mean the public life, is alarming. The ratio is absolutely high. It's more than the males. So dear students, it was today's talk where I try to define that how this feminism emerged as a political voice, as an ideology to represent, to discuss the different dimensions of this gender politics, where the women, one class, was not represented, and this political philosophy of the feminism gave them this chance to prove their mettle and gave them a recognition that you are the we are male and female, they are the different sides of the same coin. Without one, it's lopsided, we can't run the system. So within a couple of days I'm going to talk different dynamics, different dimensions of the same story, or the same chapter. Till then, all the best and take care.